When you think of electric playoff atmospheres NHL fans have produced in the modern era, the Jets' comeback with the whiteout may come to mind, or any original six team really, whether it's the Maple Leafs at Scotiabank Arena or the Rangers under the bright lights at Madison Square. But in 2017, we may have witnessed the greatest spectacle of fans, both diehard and casual alike, get behind a non-traditional hockey market and propel them to the Stanley Cup Finals. This team was the Nashville Predators, or as their team identity is known as, Smashville. What I love most about this run, from a neutral fan's perspective, was that the biggest headlines at the time weren't about how David Poile accomplished new heights after being VP of Hockey Ops for 20 years, or the coaching staff, or even the players, but the fans, and a city with an energy that you could just see through your television set. They were a hard underdog not to root for. Bridgestone quickly became one of the most difficult arenas to play in, with sold-out crowds, fan chants, and a team that loved playing in front of them. This was evident by the 10-2 record this team had at home during the stretch, and I realized, with the playoffs on the horizon, the fans and the energy an arena is able to build, especially in a playoff atmosphere, might be the thing I'll miss most in this COVID-struck year. So to fill the void, I made this video on Smashville and how it took the league and North American sports by storm.
This guy.
Pucks.
The Nashville Predators came into the league as a solo expansion team in '98 and participated in the expansion draft in Buffalo that year. And this was before you could cheat the system and draft a team that would win right off the bat. Vegas. So this team definitely paid their dues their first 5 years of existence and were near the bottom of the standings. This wasn't the most optimal position to be in, fighting for fans in the Tennessee sports market, as this was around the time the Titans got good and were making deep playoff runs. The Vancouver Grizzlies moved to Memphis just a few years later in 2001, and the University of Tennessee is a D1 sports school that's always in the mix. Not to mention, Nashville is nicknamed Music City for a reason, and is the crown jewel of country music and festivals, so the Preds were near the bottom of the pecking order in events to go to in Tennessee. This is evident when we look at attendance records when in the 05-06 season, the Predators' first winning season, they had the sixth worst attendance rate at an average of 14,428 fans, compared to their season after their cup run in 17-18, where they're more middle of the pack and accumulated an average of 17,307 fans per game, close to some original six teams like the Rangers and the Bruins. Hockey has increased its interest gradually in the city, and it helps that the Nashville metro area is the 10th fastest growing in the US. But that 2017 Cup run was definitively an entirely different beast.
Round 1, fight!
The Predators came into the 2017 playoffs as an 8 seed, and they weren't necessarily on a winning streak either to finish the season. Besides a 4-game streak late into the year, after that they lost 4 of their last 6 to end the season. This meant they had to go against the 3 Cups in 6 years dynasty Blackhawks, who clinched the first seed after a 109-point season compared to the Preds' 94 points. To put into perspective how much of a favorite the Blackhawks really were, they were the odds-on favorite to win the Cup at 4-1 according to Bovada's sportsbook, and the Predators had the 4th worst odds at 25-1. But apparently the Predators really weren't paying attention or cared, as they took a 2-0 series lead at the United Center, shutting down the Blackhawks completely. Then they had the momentum coming back home.
That's one! Thank you, Crawford! May we have another! He shoots! He scores! You suck! No!
When I was viewing this on my TV, I was like, holy shit, Preds fans are this crazy? Like, I know they've had a loyal fan base, and having a 2-0 stranglehold on the 1 seed was surely going to fill the arena, but I was not expecting the intensity or crowd chants I was seeing. It was like witnessing a European soccer match in a much smaller arena, but the buzz was on par. With how well the Preds were playing and added momentum from their fan base, they swept the Blackhawks, being the first 8 seed in playoff history to accomplish that feat. The closest game was an overtime victory in Game 3.
Pass to the middle, off to Fiala, in front, score! Kevin Fiala!
Johansson led them in points this series, and the ageless wonder Pekka Rinne truly shut the door on the Blackhawks as he obtained a .976 save percentage and only 3 goals against in 4 games.
Round 2. Fight.
Next up, the Predators were on their way to Enterprise Arena to face off against the St. Louis Blues. The Blues were a good team for sure, but at this time, it was felt they should have made it farther in previous years where they had a better record and roster. Zip forward 2 years into the future, and we know now they won the most impromptu cup of all time, which was an amazing story, and I'll make a future video about them. But in 2017, it felt like maybe they'd missed that championship window. The Predators, on the other hand, were riding high off making history, and they weren't ready to call it quits just yet. They were able to split the first 2 games in St. Louis, then win the next 3 of 4, all at home to call series. Ryan Ellis, Roman Josi, and PK Subban tied for the series lead in points with 5. And that was something really fun with this team, and what I think contributed heavily to this team's run is that Laviolette knew how good this team's top 4 defensemen were, especially on the offensive side of the puck, and would have them activate in the rush a lot to catch opponents on their toes. Rinne was crucial in the series as well, considering the Blues outshot the Preds 89-65 and contributed with a .932 save percentage and 11 goals against in 6 games.
Fight.
Last round's win meant that the Predators were on their way to their first Western Conference Finals in franchise history. They were matched up against the veteran Anaheim Ducks, who, even though they weren't as good as they were in, say, 2014, and were far removed from that 2007 Stanley Cup, they were still a much more experienced team than the Predators and were one of the best defensive teams this year. This was an exciting series off the jump, as 2 of the first 4 games went into overtime and the series was split at 2-2. Then in Game 5, the hockey gods struck down on the Ducks' young stud goaltender in John Gibson, and that's all she wrote. But even though Gibson being injured was a strike of luck for the Preds, they still outshot the Ducks, and I know that doesn't tell the whole story, but it's usually a pretty good indicator of how well a team's playing and who's got the momentum. And a point I can't stress enough, like many teams that go on cup runs, some unfamiliar names had to step up. And I think this series in particular, the Ducks were more top-heavy, where the Predators had better depth. Colton Sissons had 4 points in the series. Austin Watson had 4 goals. Mike Fisher was still a great checking forward and was a steady leader for this team. And you know James the Real Deal Neal is always good for a big playoff goal or 2 per series. Philippe Forsberg, though, a great player, but just a 22-year-old at the time, had 7 points and 5 crucial goals to help propel the Predators to their first Cup final. Pekka Rinne was still that wall in net for this team, posting a .925 save percentage and 14 goals against.
Final round. Fight.
And this is where our Cinderella story comes to an end. The Predators were trying to stand in front of history, and this time, history had won. See, the last time a team had won back-to-back Stanley Cup Finals was the 97-98 Red Wings, and the Penguins weren't unfamiliar with the back-to-back formula. And this Pens team, with unparalleled speed and offense, were too much to handle for the Predators. The first 2 games in Pittsburgh were losses, then the Preds responded with 2 commanding wins at home. Then, the Penguins shut down Nashville the next 2, and Lord Stanley was theirs. Gotta give props to the Preds, as they kept up stride for stride with the Penguins and actually outshot them. But if you know anything about that 2-year cup run for Pittsburgh, they were a completely different animal in the playoffs. Nobody wanted to get in the way of that semi-truck. Matt Murray got hot at the right time and looked like a future franchise corner piece, and we all know how that worked out. The scoring definitely dried up for the Preds after Game 4 as Josi led them with 4 points in 6 games, and Rene's play dipped, posting an .888 save percentage and 14 goals against. But it was truly an amazing run for the veteran goalie, and he stole games for this Predators club throughout the playoffs. All in all, even though Predators fans, and honestly a lot of hockey fans like myself who wanted to see this underdog story play out, were disappointed with the outcome, I truly believe this cup run will have a ripple effect of how many more kids in Tennessee will lace up some skates and work their way up from minor hockey to the NHL. It might have been a kid who came to a playoff game or two and witnessed the sights, the crowd, and energy everyone encapsulated at Bridgestone, and that's what the game's all about. Right now, there's one player born in the Nashville area who's been drafted, and that's Simon Kelberg of Swedish descent, who's currently an NCAA player and was drafted in the 6th round of the 2018 NHL draft by the Rangers. Hey, maybe he could have a pretty fruitful career. I know a couple Swedish defensemen who ended up pretty good. But it'll be definitely interesting to see in the next 10 to 20 years if we see some Tennessee-born players make an impact in the show. And this is coming from a Canadian, because when the game grows in places you don't expect, it's just more talent, which ultimately leaves a better product for us, the fans, to consume. I think too that this run, like the Kings in 2012 and many others before it, showed us why we love watching playoff hockey and the parity and unpredictability it comes with it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video and will subscribe for more, and I'll catch you later.
I just think Pecorine is too good right now.
I just think Pecorine is too good right now.